Hello again, folks. This is NixOS number 61, and I'm going to talk about using non-Nix Python packages that have binaries on NixOS. I think you might get away without watching this video if you don't want to. This talkie script on the left-hand side is pretty exhaustive about what it goes into and details what I'm going to talk about here, but for extra context, you might want to stay along. And by the way, a link to this thing will be in the video description. So let's imagine that we're kind of, a noob to NixOS, which after a year, I still consider myself one, but I'm getting there. But we're a Python developer and we'd like to start doing some data science work, and we want to use NumPy to do that. So it's just Linux, right? It should work fine, right? As we'll see, not so much. Imagine that we're, doing things like we would do on Ubuntu. And the first thing we want to do is we want to make a virtual environment, Python virtual environment. We'll call it npenv. And then we want to install NumPy into it. Okay, so note that what it installed was a many Linux wheel. So it is this thing, NumPy 126, blah, 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 blah. And it is compiled for x86-64. It is compiled for Python 3.11. It's got binaries in it. And often you can tell things have binaries in them if they're in Python wheels, because they'll say something like many Linux. They won't say all or any. I think that's the spelling of things that don't have binaries in them. So now that we've installed it, we should just be able to import NumPy, right? env bin python c import NumPy. Actually, I'll just do Python, huh? Get fancy here. NumPy. No, we have an error. And it's probably easier to see over here. Import error, libz so1 cannot show open shared object file. That's the first error we have. So what the hell? It worked fine on Ubuntu. Well, when the maintainers of NumPy created this many Linux wheel for distribution, there are shared libraries inside of this wheel that expects this libz so.1 file to be resolvable either by the system link loader, or it should be on the system library path, the LD library path. And on Ubuntu, all this is just kind of, or Fedora or anything, all this is just kind of, you rarely need to know anything about LD library path or the link loader or any of that stuff. It just kind of works. And that's because of how those distributions file systems are laid out, and the fact that it is a FHS file system hierarchy standard Linux. Those distributions are FHS compliant distributions. But even on those systems, sometimes you'll have the same problem. Like if we go to NumPy website here, it's got quite a bit of stuff about debugging this particular import error and stuff. And it even really the NumPy developers suggest that you don't use pip because they get so many questions about this sort of thing. It's easy to solve if you know what's going on, but if you don't, it's a mystery. So on Ubuntu, the way we would solve it on Ubuntu, if we went up, posted in our favorite forum our error here, they would tell us sudo apt install zlib. And then after you did that, NumPy would start to work. And that's because this package zlib has that file that, what is it called? libz so.1. and it puts it in a place on the file system that is resolvable. In our case, we're in a similar situation. We have to figure out what we have to install to get this libc so.1, this shared library file. The way we can do that, because libc is so common, we probably already have it installed somewhere. So we're going to use this nix index thing that I have configured. Index. Yeah, I just put it in my environment system packages there. And once we rebuild, well, I've already rebuilt, but if you don't have it, you'll need to rebuild. But then we'll have this nix locate command on our path. So we can do nix locate. I'll just copy it from here. Nix locate top level. Copy. Oh, it's already in my history. Okay, so it's in a bunch of places, but the most suspicious one or the most reasonable one to think about is this zlib.out. And what that means is that it is in our Nix package that's called zlib, and it is in the output of that thing. So that's a little strange, but anyway, it's just called zlib. And if we go to search nixos.org, zlib. There it is. That is the package we need to we need to have arranged to have put on our library path in order for NumPy to be able to do its job. So let's just do the needful here. zlib. I don't have it in here, so I'm going to put it in my environment system packages, and I'm going to this is an alias for NixOS rebuild switch. SWINX is just NixOS rebuild switch. Nothing magical happened there. Okay, it is installed zlib. So surely now, if we run our np-env Python -c import NumPy, surely it'll work now. Nope, exact same error. Why? Well, NixOS is special. It is not an FHS compliant Linux distribution. So even though we installed zlib somewhere on our file system, the NumPy wheel still can't find the library it wants, because neither the link loader nor the link loader can't find it, nor is it on the system library path, the LD library path of stuff. And it's important to realize that there's a very good reason for this in NixOS. This is what allows NixOS users to use different versions of the same package at the same time on the system. All right, so this is not just a difference for difference sake. This is a fundamental feature of NixOS. So if you're going to use NixOS, you sort of have to know this stuff. At this point, it's tempting to just, if you're an old Nix person, which I'm not, but I would imagine that old Nix heads would just say, okay, just use Nix for everything, because Nix, of course, has a perfectly reasonable package of NumPy in it, and it works fine. It works great. You don't have to do anything. But in the real world, this just isn't an option all the time. You work for somebody, they have build systems that use pip. And if you suggest to them that the entire organization should change over to using Nix, I think you'll get glances cast askance at you. And also remember, for the purpose of this video, we're pretending to be new to Nix entirely. So, and it's suggesting that somebody just learn Nix right off the rip is pretty absurd, because it is a journey, not a drive-by. So there are a couple ways to make this less painful. The first that I'm going to talk about is called nix-ld. And nix-ld is a package by Mike92. I think his real name is Jorg. And it's something that provides a little bit of affordance to run libraries that weren't packaged for Nix, by a Nix build script under NixOS. To use it, we're going to put a little bit of stuff in our Nix configuration, and we're going to rebuild. And the stuff we're putting in there, let's go over here, put it up here somewhere. I don't know. There seems good. This is available under NixOS 22.11 and better, but I think this particular option here is only available under 23.05 and better. That program's nix-ld libraries option. Well, I'll install it first, and then I'll explain it. Okay, so we've installed nix-ld. Many people new to NixOS are surprised that it doesn't have a /lib directory. It just doesn't exist under NixOS. That is not something that that is not the way NixOS works. Nor does it usually have this lib64 directory. But what nix-ld did was it put this lib64 on our path, and inside of it, it put a loader that will be contacted by binaries run directly, that will go ahead and look in a particular place on the file system for libraries that it wants to resolve. So this lib64 directory usually doesn't exist. Nix-ld put it there for us. It also allows, this nix-ld thing also allows us to name the libraries that we want to put in a shared location that link loader will go after. But we can also use it statically, which I'll show in a little bit. But in here, currently I have the standard N cc lib thing. This actually this is, if you're going to use nix-ld, you should put this in here, because often programs can't resolve lib standard C++ stuff, and that just makes that go away. In our case, we also added zlib here because we need to resolve that libc thing, and putting it in this program's nix-ld libraries thing will allow us to do that a little bit later. But what that means is I can get rid of it out of here. This is not useful. I can get rid of it out of my system packages. The other bit that it did for us when we told it which libraries to make available to us up here, by virtue of these two lines, is it created a place on the file system to house those libraries. And we can see that if we do env grep nix-ld, we can see where that place is. Oh, sorry. We can see where that place is. It is this place. If I can cut and paste properly. Copy. Just ls that. Okay, so these are all the .so and .so0 and .so1 files that are implied by these two lines, the standard NCC and zlib. And we can see indeed zlib.so.1 is inside of there. Amazing. Now we just have to arrange such that it can find it, right? Now that we've configured it, surely things will work now. Surely they'll work. Now we've configured this magical nix-ld thing. No, indeed not, sir. Absolutely not. So I'm a little fuzzy about why this doesn't work yet, but York has an explanation in his excellent write-up of this nix-ld thing. But what we need to do in order for things to work from this point on is one more step. We need to export ld library path equals nix-ld library path. And again, nix-ld library path is run. That's the place that we just LS'd up here with all this stuff in it. And when we export this other environment variable, the normal LD library path, that will make those libraries that are in that directory available to whatever, whatever we run on the path. So do that. Now it works. I think it's most reasonable to set this stuff up inside of a nix-shell, which Mike, in a blog entry, not on his GitHub, but he has a blog entry that's pointed to by his GitHub. He sets up a nix-shell. Let's see, is it in his blog entry? Maybe it isn't on his. Yeah, no, sorry, it's over here. He suggests using this in a nix-shell, and I think that's pretty reasonable because you can just tell somebody, if they're new to Nix, they can execute a nix-shell and be inside an environment that has this nix-ld thing set up and the library path set up such that everything just works, pip just works, all that stuff. And they just have to execute that one nix-shell command in order for it to do it. Now you can also have it just set up globally. Just put, install like I have it now. I have everything installed globally. So if I edited my Z-shell RC or something, Z-shell env, is that how it is? Yeah, if I just added it, somewhere in my configuration, just did something like export LD library path equals nix library path, nix library path, nix-ld library path. If I did that, that would also work, and it would just work globally. The downside about doing that globally, is that Nix is carefully constructed to such that programs that were packaged for Nix don't find the wrong libraries. They have entries in their shared library blobs that point to the right thing, and that's also how you can have more than one version of the same package installed at one time. So you run the risk of when you do this, of other Nix stuff not working properly, or other programs that you run not working properly. That being said, most of the Linux distribution world runs fast and loose with shared library resolution stuff. So the worst thing that could happen is that you'd wind up in the same sort of DLL hell that you're normally in, on other distributions. So either way is fine. I would suggest the nix-shell way, and it will just, especially for somebody, if you're kind of have like if you're kind of like a Nix journeyman and you're trying to, and somebody else wants to use Nix, and they're a Python programmer, you can get things set up in a way for them such that all the stuff that they used to do on Ubuntu will still work, and they can sort of not just be faced with this enormous task of either learning Nix or working around it or using all of Nix or whatever. They can just be in their comfortable world. Nix-ld is really great, fantastic. Like I said, Jorg explains it super well inside of these two things. There is an alternative to this, which is Nix allows you to in a Nix shell to build an FHS compliant sort of sandbox. I guess it's not really a sandbox, but it's kind of an overlay of the file system that adds in /lib and /lib64 and like userlib and other stuff that allows for the same thing to happen. So in this case, I have a Nix shell file, a file that would be called via Nix shell, and I call it toxnix, sorry. And this would run, I grabbed this from a customer setup, and what this does is it it makes this file system hierarchy standard compliant environment, and first installs some, dependencies. These are the things with the shared libraries in them, and then it installs Python, and then if I'm just CD'd into the place where a tox-ini is for this customer, I just run nix-shell, nix-shell tox-ini. It runs this, and the tests pass. If I run it outside of this FHS environment, the tests fail because some shared libraries can't be resolved. I could also use nix-ld to do the same thing, but I didn't know about nix-ld when I wrote this. So, okay, that was just a lot of information, and I hope this helps someone. And thanks for watching.